After 4 years, the war still rages between Russia and Ukraine. After failed attempts at multiple peace deals, one foreign affairs specialist says that without security measures for Ukraine and efforts from Russia, there's no end in sight. The Kremlin launched a full-out invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022, with the assumption that the takeover would only take a few days. Instead, it's become one of the longest land wars in Europe. Angela Weck, executive director at the Peoria Area World Affairs Council and an expert on Russian history, says that Russia has only been able to take about 19% of Ukraine. She also highlighted unsolved U.S. diplomatic efforts to bring both Ukraine and Russia to a consensus.
If the world, especially the United States, is not willing to offer those on-the-ground security deals, Ukraine understands that it has to keep fighting for its very existence.
Weck says that Ukraine would be willing to give up territory if allowed to keep security measures in place to defend itself if Russia were to strike again in the future.